Welcome to the GoOutLiving Attitude, a cancer survivor's journey through health and wellness, helping others search for the tools to bring us a healthier and happier lifestyle. Hi everyone, Jonathan Brandt, GoOutLiving. Today's special guest is Jason Yun. He is a former fitness and nutrition guru, former gym owner, and now coaching circadian health. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, Jonathan. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Like I said, as we were talking earlier, your story is very interesting to me. I think a lot of people can relate to thinking you're just in a great place and you're really not. So I thought we'd start from there, from the beginning. And yeah, please, I'd love to hear about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, I started my fitness business in 2007. But the actual story starts a little bit before that. So before that, I suffered through depression, anxiety, thoughts of suicide. Basically, I followed the path that everybody tells you to do: go to school, try to get good grades, then graduate high school, then go to college and find your purpose, find your living, and then you graduate there, and then you go out, you make all this money, and you find your picket white fence, you find your perfect wife, and then you have married and children and all that. But I did all that, and they didn't really. There was um, no other game plan to push you towards. So there's one quote that I always like to say. So it's like, wherever you go, there you are. And what I didn't work on was the inner me. So that's why I really went deep down into depression and anxiety and thoughts of suicide. And basically, I had to pull myself out of that. But one of the big things that did pull me out was my workout routine and my nutrition. And then eventually, late 2007 is when I opened up my fitness business. Eventually, it became a fitness boot camp where I was basically just training people. We started in just like a local park, and eventually, it just word of mouth got out, and it just grew and grew. And eventually, we moved into a studio because I'm here in Ohio, so it is cold, so we do have to move in for the winter. But then um, I started to grow that. Eventually, we grew the boot camp to about 3 locations, and eventually, I opened up a youth sports and fitness program as well. And I also added on nutrition coaching and whatnot, also supplements and all that stuff. So that it was going real good. I would say probably 2015 is when I really started noticing some changes mentally, physically, emotionally. It's basically when you have, so it's not like a typical gym where you're just open at certain hours. So you've got to serve a certain community. So my first class was typically 5:15 a.m. and to be there, I had to wake up at 4:30 a.m. And then my last class was typically ended at 8:15 p.m. It's a long day and long commute and whatnot. 2015, I started feeling a little bit off. So, and eventually it just kept getting worse. So 2016, 2017, 2018 is when I actually changed. But my main issue, as I later found out, was I had hormone issues. For somebody in their late 30s at the time, that was unacceptable to me because people were coming to me to help them with their fitness and their health and nutrition and all that stuff. And here I was not feeling my best. So, but I was basically doing everything that I was told to do, leaving the fitness, the nutrition lifestyle. If you would have asked me back then, I would have told you to be healthy. Number one and number two thing is you need a good diet and you need a good workout program. And as I've learned since then, nothing can be further from the truth because the diet and the exercise program can actually help push you into sickness, and it definitely did for me. So I had basically upside down cortisol, melatonin. So basically, in the morning, cortisol is supposed to be highest, so it's supposed to help wake us up and make us productive during the day. And then Later on at night, melatonin is supposed to rise and cortisol is supposed to be basically non-existent. So melatonin is supposed to help put us to sleep, get us into the deeper stages of sleep, and then you recover and all your proteins, your mitochondria are refreshed and ready to go for the next day. But my problem was I was high cortisol at night and low cortisol during the day, and I had to take naps and all this stuff, falling asleep at the wheel. Basically, I was driving to my gym, basically having like a slap fight with myself, slapping myself, trying to stay awake. And I would usually at the very end, I was basically leaving my house like half an hour early so I can drive to the parking lot next door and get a 30-minute nap before my clients got there. So it was pretty bad, but eventually late 2018, I really was looking into doing something different because obviously what I was doing was not working. And that's when I found Dr. Jack Cruz for the second time. Um, I say second time because I originally found him in 2013, but back then I was feeling fine, so there was no issues that I knew of. But um, there's a quote I always like to say: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And in my case, the teacher will reappear. So he reappeared, and I took his advice. Basically, he's really big. oh, Sorry, sorry. He's really big into circadian rhythm, mitochondrial health, hormonal health, sleep optimization, all that stuff. So I took his advice, and basically within, I would say, a month of doing what he said, and I actually started off wrong. But within a month, I just started to feel really, really good. It was a real fast turnaround. But then eventually, after that month, I course corrected, and then things took off from there. And eventually, like 18 months later, I actually closed my gym to basically focus on circadian rhythm coaching and whatnot. That's the story in a nutshell.
So, are most of us just doing it wrong then? I mean, is that why honestly, I mean, because that's like you said, everybody and me as well think about nutrition and fitness. And I know for myself and from my history that doesn't always work. I was 65 pounds overweight just over a year ago, and I was working out. I was eating right, but there was other things in my life that weren't there. So, is that what's happening? We're just not doing it right from the beginning?
Um, well, basically, fitness and nutrition is basically a half truth. So it can help you when um, when everything in you is correct. So we are we're basically run by clocks. So that's basically what our circadian rhythm is. So everybody knows that the sun rises at a certain time and then it sets at a certain time, and that changes throughout the year. But inside of us, we've got these circadian clocks. Every organ has their own peripheral clock, and if these clocks get unsynced, then that's when the inflammation can start rising up and all kinds of things can start happening. So, um, but basically, our master clock is in our eye. So that's known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and that one has to run faster than all the other clocks in your body. Um, so it's kind of like the GPS on your phone. So there's a satellite in the sky that helps you with the Waze and Google Maps and all that stuff. But if it gets off, then you're going to wind up 10 miles off your destination, which doesn't really help you at all. So, um, but what I like to say is fitness and nutrition, especially when you're younger, it's just like a band-aid. But as you age, the stuff underneath the band-aid is going to start gushing out because the band-aid can't hold it in forever because it's just a band-aid. Um, but yeah, so there's just different rules to fitness, different rules to nutrition when you're living more circadianly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does completely. It has to be different for everybody though, because we're all so different. How do we know what's right?
Um, well, the number one thing I always tell people for the number one thing for humans is basically seeing the sunrise and seeing it with naked eyes. So no sunglasses, no contacts. If you do wear glasses, pull them on the bridge of your nose or just take them completely off. It's just we want that sunlight going in the eye because our we've got an opsin called melanopsin, which is basically like our blue light antenna. And so there's blue light from the sun, and that blue light basically sets the circadian rhythm. It basically tells the master clock what time of day it is. The lights that you're under and people in their offices, and when you go into grocery stores, the light emitted from your phone, your tablets, Apple Watches, all that stuff, that is spiking in the blue light, but there's no red light and there's no UV like there is in the sun. So when you turn that light on or when you look at your phone, it's always the same color temperature. Meanwhile, and it's always the same frequency. Meanwhile, the sun is changing at basically every nanosecond. Um, so it basically sends the signal to your brain whenever you're exposed to that light. It it says like it's 12 o'clock, it's 1 o'clock p.m. So when you're looking at night or any time of the day, really, but night is the worst because that's going to basically destroy your melatonin, raise your cortisol, which was the problem that I had. Um, so, and yeah, it just basically gives the brain, hey, it's 12 o'clock, it's 1 o'clock. That's supposed to be a productive time. And that's why millions and millions of people can't sleep. And when they actually sleep, they're not actually sleeping. They're not getting into that stage 3, stage 4 sleep, which is the sleep that recovers us so we can wake up and we don't need coffee, we don't need um, caffeine, we don't need simple carbohydrates, which give us like a quick boost of ATP. So we feel a little jolt of energy, but it doesn't last. And then we need to keep putting that in and keep um, tricking ourselves. And basically, it's just a repeated cycle over and over again. So it's like a merry-go-round. And eventually, as you get older, the merry-go-round goes faster and faster. So it's harder to jump off because if you eventually do, you'll get hurt and all that stuff. So, but that's how they want it. They want you going into that merry-go-round because they want you entering into big pharma, doctors, surgeons, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying we've kind of been doing things wrong for 50 years now. Um, how obviously a lot of us recognize it too late. And I'm assuming you get a lot of people that come to you looking for help. Are they willing to get on with you like right away? Do they get it? Or does it take a while to understand?
um, well, I've had since I started circadian rhythm coaching, I've had two clients that have actually quit with me, and those two clients were actually clients when I was doing my fitness boot camps. So it does take a mindset shift. Um, but usually people when I do start with them now, it's more um, they have been following me for a while. They've been seeing my social media posts and all that stuff, and they're on my newsletter or something. So they I basically try to educate as much as I possibly can because it's basically like Yoda said. You need to unlearn and then you need to relearn. What I forget the exact word, but relearn and unlearn and then apply that. Yeah, quiet.
And
Um,
that's part of the problem is our kids, are being taught the wrong way. So
yeah,
how do we go about teaching everybody how important this actually is? Like we talk about health and nutrition, but this is probably, our own clockwork is the most important. And if we continue to ignore it, we end up like me, with cancer. So how do we get our kids to start understanding that this is really the most
yeah,
important thing?
yeah. It's basically just um, living by example. Um, yeah, I try to prioritize sunlight for them. Um, it's got warmer here, so there's a new computer company called Daylight Computer Company, which is the first blue light free and flicker free tablet. So I let them get on that, but they have to be outside when they're on it. Um, but it's basically, and then morning sun, I always talk to them about morning sun. I always, when they're at the the table eating breakfast or at the island eating breakfast, a lot of times I'll just pick them up and carry them out and just talk to them, say this is the most important thing and all that stuff. And so they know I'm obsessed with the sun. So you just have to uh, teach them. But then on the other side, there's the blue light. So whenever they're watching like TV or anything, or on like a regular tablet, they have to wear the blue blocking glasses. So
Something you put in here as well, nature always beats out man-made anything.
yes,
Can you explain that? I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I don't think people understand how important that is as well.
yeah. So um, yeah, I always say the more you connect to nature and the less you connect to man-made, especially technology, then your health is going to get better. Because usually when we are connected to technology, and people don't think about um, like power lines as being a problem, but that was like one of the first EMFs that we had to face. And I always say basically the main causes of pretty much every modern man disease is artificial light, which is an EMF, and the non-native EMFs, so electromagnetic fields, so the Wi-Fi, the smart meters, your phone, cell towers, um, a lot of new cars, electric cars, all that stuff. Um, yeah, so the you just want it's about connecting more to nature, and then with your technology mitigating how you use it. So on my phone, there's a red filter on my phone, so it's just a red screen. I basically keep it that way the entire time. There are settings that I can lower so I can see a little bit better, but and then there's on my Macs, I have a program called Iris, which basically takes the blue light out. I also have like a grounding cord. I'm on Ethernet right now rather than Wi-Fi, so I'm just plugged in. Um, yeah, so and wireless is worse than wired. So um, yeah, so it'd be AirPods would be like the worst. Then you've got like the wired, the original wired. Those still give a little bit EMF. And then I've got like the air tubes, which is like EMF free. So it's just, and there's a bunch of companies coming out that are making more and more EMF friendly, light friendly, circadian friendly type stuff that you can use. Yeah, it's just building the awareness. And it happens one thing at a time. So you can't be going in, I'm going to change 30 things today. Because if I did that in 2018, I probably wouldn't be married anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, we're surrounded by it. It's so difficult, and that's I think a lot of people look at anything from the health and wellness industry as overwhelming,
Hmm.
and the medical world in general is just completely overwhelming, and we just kinda start to trust whatever because, again, it's like, where do you go? That's been part of my problem, like I said, since my cancer treatment. There's so many people that say different things, and it's hard to know what's true and what's not true. However, if we go back to if it's man-made, it's kind of a good starting point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Does that include nutrition? I know you said nutrition, isn't the most important part, but it has to be important in some way. And I'm guessing man-made again is the best way to go.
Um, well, basically,
Or
nature
I'm
made,
sorry,
nature made.
nature-made.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. So, yeah, if you're constantly eating lab grown food and whatnot, it's not gonna end well for you. But basically, what most food gurus don't understand is that all food grown naturally is grown via photosynthesis. So, and they discovered there's 39 steps in photosynthesis, all of the steps are quantized, which means they're driven by light. So, um, so basically, the sun grows the tomato, it grows the vegetables, it grows the grass, which the cow eats, the goat eats, and then you eat the cow, you eat the goat, you drink their milk, whatnot. Um, except don't drink their milk if they take it into the thing and they pasteurize it and they make it into some Franken food and whatnot. So that's something I've been on a tear recently. So pasteurized milk. I don't know. Have you read the book The Devil in Milk?
I have not.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good book just talking about how pasteurization is basically uh, has basically killed milk. So there's a very important enzyme called lactoferrin in there, which is vital for like bone growth, bone health, and especially important for like growing kids and whatnot. But they want the kids growing pasteurized milk, so they basically get the mindset that they have to follow the orders, march in line, don't question anything, all that stuff. Um, but yeah, just following nature. So I always say eat seasonally, eat locally as possible. Here in the winter, I'm basically it's ketogenic as possible because nothing grows here in Ohio. Mm. And then as things come into season, I start to eat more and more things. Yeah. So, but pretty much protein, meat, different kinds of fat are on the list year round. And another nutrition rule that I always tell people is when the sun is up, kitchen is open, sun is down, kitchen is closed. Because we weren't supposed to eat when it's dark. Because basically our gut and eyes, they have they're obviously they have clocks, but they need to be in sync. And the gut and the eye clock are the easiest to unsync because we can turn on the lights at any time, we can eat at any time, we can basically have food delivered 24/7. We can go into any grocery store. A lot of them are 24/7, and you can pick whatever you want. You can pick um, bananas, which were grown in the tropics, and you can eat them in the middle of winter. But one thing you'll never see a polar bear eating a banana unless he's eating a human that ate a banana.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, but yeah, just following how nature does it. So, like everybody knows that bears hibernate for the winter, but basically before they hibernate, they're eating as much as possible because the the late season, late fall, early winter, the carbohydrates are still there, but the UV index is going down. So the power of the sun is going down, and so the sun helps to deplete something called deuterium. So deuterium is basically heavy water. So just think of it like it's like Aunt Jemima syrup for your car. So your car's not going to go very far if you keep putting Aunt Jemima syrup in it with your gas. Um, so the sun helps to deplete that, but the bear is trying to get as fat as possible. Some of them will actually make themselves pre-diabetic or diabetic, and then they hibernate for the winter. They wake up, they're not diabetic anymore. So humans don't do that. We when it's cold, they go inside. They don't typically go outside, and they'll eat banana, they'll eat pineapple, they'll eat whatever Oreos and all that stuff, and they'll wonder why they're cold all the time. So that's an indication that your mitochondria is failing if you are cold all the time as well.
I mean, our body is amazing if we let it be, and a lot of us just ignore it, like me. I ignored pretty much everything until I got cancer, uh, basically stage 4.
Wow.
My wife passed away in January of cancer, neither of
Sorry.
us but no, but it's the point is we ignored so much, even though we thought we were fine, obviously we weren't. So and we know, in America especially, there's a huge issue, whether it's obesity, whether it's heart disease, whether it's whatever, cancer. How do we if we're going through something, how do we change? our lifestyle to become healthier again overall?
Um, well, it first and foremost it starts with the light environment. Um, so again, sunrise is the most important. What I didn't mention about sunrise is it also it turns on the proper hormone cascade. So all the sex steroid hormones, pregnenolone, progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, and the precursor for vitamin D, all get released once that once the once the eyeball sees the sun. Um, so that's one of the big things about it. And then beta oxidation, which is fat burning, um, occurs during the sunrise. So see the sunrise, you get proper mitochondrial turnover, so it's burning fat. Because if you don't, then you have to do what like the bodybuilders say, or like the fitness buffs or the personal trainers. You've got to manipulate your macros. You got to count your carbs, count your protein, count your fat, count your calories, all that stuff. And um, that for some people they can't do that, but a lot of other people it's annoying, and they're not going to continue doing it. So um, yeah, but so changing that light environment, sunrise, but also when you are indoors, those tips I made about the screens, the blue blocking glasses, they do have light bulbs that are circadian friendly. Um, yeah, so that's number one. Number two is just starting to mitigate EMF. Um, so if you can uh, switch to Ethernet, if not, at least turn the Wi-Fi off at night when you sleep, because that's the most important. It's the most Sleep is the most important thing that we do. Because if our sleep starts to suck, then basically the health will start to decline and whatnot. Um, yeah, so mitigating that, and then grounding, earthing. So I'm barefoot right now in the grass, and so basically our energy source is electrons. And if we are not connected to nature, so we're supposed to get about 60% of our electrons from nature and only about 40% from food. But if we simply focus on food, then that's simply not enough. And we're going to have, obviously, we have a massive energy crisis. There's energy drinks, coffee on every single corner and whatnot. But when you do ground, it basically think of like a FM radio station, and you're driving away from like their cover area, so it starts to get staticky and staticky and staticky, and eventually you can't hear it anymore. It's just white noise. Um, but basically, when we ground, it's basically everything's clear, everything's working, everything's talking to each other. The cells talk to each other, the mitochondria talks to each other, all that stuff. Um, so everything is just in sync, and everything's in the proper timing. So yeah, so everything works there. Um, yeah, and basically, if our we don't want our electron to proton balance to get out of place, because we are naturally net negatively charged, and electrons are a negative charge, protons are a positive charge. So if the ratio gets out of sync, protons go up. Protons have, I believe it's 1,852 times the mass of an electron. So it is energy, but it's not free energy. Yeah. So in anything that's getting sicker, typically will get bigger. So obviously, with you and cancer, you got a tumor that just started to grow and whatnot. But yeah, so grounding, and then another thing is in terms of nutrition is DHA, which is most people know it as the omega-3 fatty acid. I always say DHA is the most important thing to eat. It is basically, it helps us collect those electrons from nature. It collects electrons from food, and basically DHA. We have the most DHA in our eye on a per unit basis, and that's basically so when you are out with naked eyes, the sun will hit the DHA and it will turn that into a DC electric current. So I did mention like the power lines. So like everything you plug your appliances in, your refrigerator, your charger, all that stuff, it runs on AC current, alternating current. But we run on DC current, which is direct current. Um, yeah, I don't know how much you know about like the battle for the wars, but like Edison versus Tesla. So Edison wanted the DC electric current, but the thing is, it's harder to deliver, and it costs more money for energy companies to deliver it. And Edison wanted the energy to be free, but Tesla and Westinghouse, they wanted AC current, which is a lot easier to deliver and it's a lot cheaper, and they wanted people to pay for the energy. So obviously, guess who won out there? Um, because we're
It
still paying for it.
sounds like pharmaceuticals.
Yep, yep. It's basically the same things. Just monopolies everywhere. Um, yeah. So we, when you, when, so our DC current is basically running. It's basically like a healing power when we're awake. So it's kind of like think of it like Wolverine's power minus 100. So I mean, obviously, if we get shot, we're not going to heal in like 10 seconds. So, um, but during at night, that DC current goes away because now it's going to regenerate just as long as we are getting that proper sleep. Yeah. So that's probably the top four to start looking at and to turn things around.
Is it fair to say there's even though you're going through something terrible, there's a way out of it? There's a good chance you can help heal yourself as long as you follow, like, your steps.
Hmm. Um, I always say most diseases are reversible, or at least you can see like a dramatic turnaround. However, most people are not going to be fixable because their mind is fixed, and if you present this kind of information to them, it's basically like a brick wall they'll put up, and cognitive dissonance and all that stuff will go up and prevent them from actually doing things. Because when I started, I watched Dr. Jack Cruz's video probably 7, 8, 9 times before I actually did anything, because I was so ingrained in that fitness nutrition mindset, and it was just hearing what he was saying was basically just like a giant kick in the balls.
I mean, that's with so many different things, though. I mean, that's what I'm learning from doing the podcast is there's so many great people out there that have been kinda screaming this stuff,
Hmm.
and we've ignored it.
Yep. Yep.
And that's even from the nutrition side, the fitness side, getting back to simplicity, getting back to nature, getting back to letting our bodies just do what it's supposed to do, we've completely ignored.
Yep. Yeah. For sure.
So, okay, as both of us have kids, and in my mind, we've screwed ourselves up enough. Yeah, we can get out of it, but we want what's best for them. And I think that's how we have to change our world, to be honest with you, is with our kids because it's not gonna change for us overnight. But recognizing that we need that change, how do we do that with our kids? I know we can do it one-on-one at home if you buy into it, but is there a way to do it on a bigger scale?
On a bigger scale, I don't really think so. I think it has to start at the home. It has to start with yours, and from there it can grow, because if people see what you're doing, they'll start to ask questions and they'll get more curious and whatnot, and that's when you can tell them. Because if you're telling somebody that's not open to this kind of information, then you're just talking to like a brick wall. That and family is like one of the biggest brick walls you're going to encounter. Um,
Especially
so
the
that was
kids.
yeah, yeah. So that was one thing I really had to learn, and adjust myself and just not get mad when I presented this information because they're going to trust the doctor, they're going to trust the surgeon and the people that have the medical degrees and all that stuff. Um, but what we don't know is that that's everybody that went through those programs went through a certain school that taught a certain way, and basically the way is to get you into big pharma and get you on medicines and keep you a customer for life. Um, so basically, um, they don't want people basically healing themselves. They don't want people. Um, that's why Bill Gates is always on the news talking about how he's trying to block the sun or he's trying to release poisonous mosquitoes or something like this. Um, but yeah, so just it starts at home, starts with one, and then from there the community can grow. And then obviously talking about your experiences, sharing your experiences, because people are going to see it, especially like social media and whatnot and all that. But I mean, that's another thing that's basically killing, well, slowly killing people. So doom scrolling and all that stuff, plus the light and whatnot from the phone and all that. But it's, um, but yeah, waking people up one at a time is like one of the most important things. And I think when we went through COVID and all that stuff, it really helped wake more people up, which wasn't their intended goal. But so now we've got things everywhere, and people like sounding the bells and whistleblowers here and there, and yeah. So there's more and more information coming out. I mean, they're still going to try and suppress a lot of stuff and take away our freedom of speech and all that stuff, but we just have to stay vigilant and basically become harder to kill, so to speak.
Well, and I like you said, I hope people listen to our stories, and that's the hardest part is listening and kinda changing without it happening to you, but there's so many young people that are starting to get sick, and I mean, I'm talking cancer and heart disease and obesity that I hope it can change. I hope on a bigger scale it can change. I hope it's a community that can come together because we do feel this way. We might not all agree on every part of it, but the fact that we know there's a huge issue is our one factor that we know we wanna get out there because we want everybody else to be healthy. So that has to start with a community. Yeah, it's one person to one person, but we gotta build a community in my mind.
Absolutely.
How do we get a hold of you, Jason?
Um, I'll probably the best way where I try to educate the most is my newsletter. So it's improvementwarriorfitness.com/NL. But otherwise, I'm all over social media. So Facebook, Instagram, I am at sun.yun.jason. And then everywhere else, YouTube, Twitter, I'm at Yun Training. So, and typically when I am on social media at the end, I'll post like a hashtag like sunlight with Yun, blue light with Yun.
If you have one more thing to say to everybody, what would it be?
Build your melanin. It is our superpower. So
There you go.
it's on the outside. It's also on the inside.
There you go. Love it.
Yeah, and basically everything that they're trying to do is an attack on melanin. So glyphosate, the chemtrails, and blocking out the sun, all that stuff. Telling you to wear sunscreen, sunglasses, all that stuff.
Jason Young, I mean, absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you coming on and teaching me at least. We got a long
Absolutely,
ways to
Jonathan.
go.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Jonathan. Thank you very much.
Um, of course. And all of you, thank you all for listening. And as we continue our health and wellness journeys, find the attitude, keep the attitude, go out living. Bye, everyone.